Welcome to 2025. My name is Timothy Halloran. I am your evolutionary astrologer. And in this video, we're discussing a Cancer full moon. This is the first full moon of the year in her own sign. So we're off to an incredibly profound start to what may be one of the most profound years of our lifetime, globally, collectively speaking. I don't know if in grade school you did this activity where you write a letter to your future self. This may not be a bad idea for this particular year, because who we begin as and who we leave off at the end of this year as could very well be completely different people. So we're already off to a profound and exciting start. We're going to discuss how this full moon is at an introverted high point, being joined with Mars retrograde. And here's a little bit of some astro nerd material for my fellows. Whenever planets are opposite to the sun, that means they are simultaneously closest to the Earth, and this is whenever planets are retrograde. So our full moon in Cancer, opposite to the sun in Capricorn, will join Mars retrograde, who is entering the sign of Cancer today. And this marks this high point of introversion, turning in on ourself. Now, this time of year, as well as July, is when we experience the Cancer-Capricorn polarity. This is when the sun and typically inner planets transit this polarity. And this polarity has so much to do with the inside-outside dynamic, the public self, private self dynamic, who we are at home, who we are in the bedroom, who we are when nobody else is watching us, who we are in the bath versus our public-facing self, what we're doing for our job, the things that we're being asked to address, the things we're being asked to fix in the world. And this dynamic, again, comes up in January as well as July every year when the sun transits, in this case, Capricorn, and in July, the sun transits Cancer. So our full moon, again, in Cancer, opposite to the sun, is an emotional high point. The moon is also out of bounds. Mars is out of bounds. I mean, this can really be emotionally overwhelming. And so I want to jump straight into the heart of this particular time period and this particular material, because we need to speak to what is going on here. This whole Mars retrograde has a collective theme. And Mars retrograde is always a period of incredible readjustment, all right? So this began the last week of December when Mars stationed retrograde at 6 degrees Leo. And again, today, January 6th, Mars is moving back into Cancer, where he will station the end of February, 17 degrees Cancer, before moving back into Leo mid-April. Now, these degrees of Cancer, where Mars is going to station at the end of February, is where the asteroid Lucifer already stationed at the start of November. So we've also got asteroid Lucifer in Cancer, which is a poignant planet in evolutionary astrology. Well, it's an asteroid, not a planet, but a powerful asteroid. Asteroids are like people, not all created equal. This is a powerhouse asteroid that's really similarly heightening our own emotional feedback. Heightening our own emotional feedback, we need to be wary not to be swept off our feet, not to be merely possessed by emotion or dragged down by emotion like a swamp in which we cannot move, in which we cannot digest. This is rather about necessary digestion. And the moon Cancer does rule the stomach. So when we have so many emotional things going on, we can feel that in our stomach. We can experience not only a physical constipation, but sometimes an emotional, a spiritual, and energetic constipation to what it is we are processing, to what it is we are digesting. And this full moon, which will be exact on January 13th, marks the high period of introversion for 2025. This is not about baby hitting the ground running. In 2025, we are going through a significant rebirthing process now into April, May, when Mars pulls out of his shadow of his retrograde, goes opposite to Pluto once again at the end of April. All right. So this is again going to bring us into emotional digestion and reflection, which is necessary. We need to address these degrees of Cancer. They are very important degrees. Mars will station direct the end of February on the planetary north node of Jupiter. That's again where asteroid Lucifer stationed at the start of November. So The north node of Jupiter is one of the most missing and needed philosophical medicines on the planet at this time. We don't get cancer. We don't even get cancer in places we should get it, such as ideally our family, or what we even consider safe places, such as churches or hospitals, or even, circles where you're supposed to be supporting one another, and instead we put each other down violently. Why? Because we're born into an overly Capricorn distorted world that has overinflated expectations, obligations around achievement and accomplishment. Even when it comes to spirituality, even when it comes to religion, we are supposed to click our heels together, be totally stoic, not express any feelings, because that comes from the ego, and we don't want to identify with the ego. We want to get rid of the ego. And what that actually ends up becoming is sociopathic. This sociopathic consciousness it's not anything new. It's been in our consciousness for thousands of years. It's what allowed the Crusaders to crusade, white Christians to enslave black people. It is this disassociating from our feelings through this make-believe that you should be disassociated. You don't need to feel bad about that. That's how the Nazis were capable of the Jewish Holocaust, through this practice of dissociation, getting out of body, getting out of feelings, and putting those feelings onto somebody or something else, so that way it's not up to you to have to feel those things. Folks, if you ever detect any of that in a spiritual circle, in what's supposed to be an emotional safe space, that means it is no longer a safe space. Sociopathic consciousness destroys safety. And what I'm letting you know is there are way too many so-called spiritual teachers that are actual sociopaths or narcissists that believe that they are enlightened when they're actually spreading abuse. And they abuse the shit out of their satsangs, their attendants, and it's all about how you're supposed to be enlightened already and not have feelings, and this is the death, the murder of our soul. There are even so-called divine feminine preachers and teachers and cults that teach that we should not be depressed because depression is a sin. Well, I think considering depression a sin is a sin. That is the absolute inversion of the divine feminine intelligence. The divine feminine intelligence does not say depression is a sin. The divine feminine intelligence says, are you feeling okay? I'd like you to feel better. How can we help you? That's compassion. How can we help you? If you don't feel good, how can we help you? You're disturbing me, so feel better. So, the point of this Mars retrograde collectively for all of us in the sign of Cancer is, what is safety? Where is the safe space? Who is the familial peoples? Who are our real family? Not just nuclear family, because we don't necessarily get this safety served soft serve style from our families, right? So we have to create the most missing and needed medicine on the planet, which means caretakers have to recognize themselves. They have to recognize that their intelligence is not respected, and they have to, survive this world that, again, is going to put these ancient prejudices onto us, which is the actual continued oppression of the divine feminine, or those who embody the divine feminine, by those who are preaching and teaching the antithesis, even when on the surface they're parading around as the embodied divine feminine themselves. I think not. All right? This is about us changing reality. We have to ask, what is safety, if we haven't had it before, which I think many of us have not. This is the reality of the world. This is why it's okay to be depressed. It's a sad world. Hello. If you're awake, alive in this body, and you're not dissociated and pretending to be enlightened and believing forcibly that everyone should be you, which is tyrannical, you will be aware of the sad reality of this world. That is not a sickness. That is not a disease. That means you're processing reality for what it is. That is the tether between our heart and our soul. And this is straight evolutionary astrology. The moon Cancer, our ego, is not something we want to throw out. It is through our emotions and having felt experiences that the soul learns, grows, and evolves. So if we're trying to eliminate our feelings, particularly negative feelings, what we're actually doing is chopping off our higher intelligence. We're not going to be guided into safety if we're chopping off the GPS unit that brings us to safety. We need to respect and listen to that ego and reframe it as the inner child so we can do necessary reparenting work to listen to that inner child, respect him or her, and create safe space for them, to find the others, to create the home, to create the homestead. And this is going to call us inside. This is the high point, most introverted period of hibernation of the year. Regardless of what hemisphere on the planet you are, we're going inside to the cave of our inner child to digest, to maybe grieve, to maybe necessarily mourn. And that is what catalyzes our soul's growth and evolution. Okay, so we have to ask, what is safety? This can take us all the way into the past. We're going to digest everything we've lived up until now so we can go through this necessary adjustment. So a lot of us, spent the holidays with family, and I know I was talking about some of these things. Like, for example, I was talking to my mom, and it's in, this song where I was like, Mom, remember when you were young, you shone like the sun, shine on you crazy diamond. Well, that's kind of a sad thing to hear from your son, right? But that's reality. I think many of us have to have these real talks where it's like, I remember you, and I remember me, and I remember that innocence, and I remember that warmth before the world, before that relationship, before that job, before the endless repeated traumas of these recent years, before we got worn into the ground, before our inner child was nearly killed off. But what? It was not killed off. It's still there. He or her is calling us back. This is like a soul retrieval. This is like a rescuing our phantom limb that the inner child's going to call us back to. In this rediscovery of who we are, we need the safe space. We need the supportive circles. We need the grief circles in order to unwrap and let the snake skins go, to come into our essence. And that is the main evolutionary intention, beginning January 11th, in just a few days. The moon's north node enters Pisces, where the moon's north node will remain through the end of July 2026. This highlights the collective evolutionary direction towards this opening and surrendering to greater purpose, which will come from where? Our essence. Our essence. Do you have to fight and force square pegs through round holes to come into who you already are? No. We're going to discover what is already there inherently, what is already automatic, what wants to spill out, what we want to share, what we love, what inspires us. That's what we're going to be seeking this next 18 months. Now, Venus just entered Pisces last week, Thursday, January 2nd, where she will remain through February 4th. So she's exalted in Pisces. This is creative. This is dreamy. Venus in Neptune's sign. Today, Mercury is square Neptune. Dreamy, uncertain, very uncertain right now. Who is she really? Who am I really? What are we really doing here? Have we even discussed it yet? And if there's any uncertainty right now, I highly suggest have the necessary conversation. We're not just introverting the next few months while Mars is retrograde. There's still a lot of stuff we have to address on the outside. Mercury moves into Capricorn Wednesday through the 27th. This is a time where we take things more seriously. And as Mercury just enters Capricorn, he's going to square the moon's nodes at 0 degrees. And this is where we may need to have this serious conversation. And that's going to turn a page. It's going to turn a chapter. It may bring up these feelings, and then we go through another phase of digestion and we let another snake skin go. But ladies and gentlemen, please communicate. Check in with one another. Let each other know this is what's going on inside of me. This is what I'm attempting to work on. This is what I'm busy with. This is what's taxing. This is what's fulfilling. Let's get some feedback here, because this is an opportunity for us to build something new. Although so much of this rebirthing is going to begin inside of ourselves. So this process of elimination, which is very stereotypical, again, when planets are opposite to the sun, they go retrograde. And that retrograde signature has all of this inherent in its meaning. We turn that planet in on itself. Mars is usually action, usually outward. Retrograde in Cancer? No. We don't have to feel 100% confident about who we are and what we're doing right now, because we have to go through this necessary inner rebirthing. Honor the bath time these next few months. Honor the sauna. Honor the bed. And just give yourself this time to return to that inner pillow fortress, because this is how we recreate a womb-like space, which is what? Safety. If we can recreate a womb-like space in our own home, our inner child can feel safe to move those emotions through, and then the snakeskins fall off. So that's a retrograde. We hone in on something more so while we're stripping away the debris, and we're experimenting. It's not about knowing what that essence is going to be. It's about trying these things out as we wriggle out of the old snakeskin and liberate ourselves into a new fresh skin going into spring northern hemisphere this next year. So this reminds me of, that woman Marie Kondo, who's famous for cleaning out houses when they get overly cluttered. This is going to be a part of our process. It's like, what she recommends, this is a very Virgo thing, again, process of elimination, it's Virgo. When you're going through your closet full of junk, you take each object and you hold on to it. And if there's a spark that's there, you keep it. And if there's no spark, you say thank you to that object and then you eliminate it. You get rid of it. Now, the point of sharing this is that thank you and elimination is a really integral part of this process, because we're remembering who we were. We're remembering that we may have had that phase. We're remembering that we went through that and maybe we've evolved. Maybe we're different now. Maybe we don't like that. Maybe that's lost its flavor. This would be the time, if any, to be uncertain of our own sense of taste, of this flavor. It is an exploring, experimental period, and we want to be, therefore, as flexible as humanly possible, especially these first few months of 2025, because as we get into April, as we get into May, count my word, you're going to see a baby born, and it's going to be exciting, it's going to be new, it's going to be spontaneous and fresh, and it's just going to want to go, it's going to want to play, it's going to want to express. So we have this time to creatively renew. We have this time to creatively reinvent. And once again, to encourage us to leave, like an old snakeskin, these patriarchal, man-made religions and patriarchal spiritual bullshit. It's not actually spiritual at all. We want to let that snakeskin go too, which means we're reframing depression as ew, let's get that away from us. And then we turn into fucking Satan when we try to do that. We turn into oppressors when we try to do that. That's not necessarily an enlightened person that we're attending satsangs with. That very well could be a sociopath or a narcissist. I see that more commonly in the New Age world than authentic spiritual teachers. And I mean that seriously. So if we're pretending this world's all safe, we're fucking delusional. We need to get real here. This is about the safety of our soul. This is about bringing our soul back online so we don't lose it to the zombie sleepwalking world we were born into. No, this is not something you have to celebrate. We don't have to like this. We don't have to like what we're feeling. You don't have to like what you're feeling. That's such a bullshit expectation, and what it does is it backfires. It makes everything fall back in on itself. So we're reframing depression as being a negative thing. Ew, get it away, which is going to make it stick to you for much longer in the long term. Depression is a necessary creative renewal period. It's a necessary hibernation. When the world loses its stereotypical flavor and color, we hibernate. We introvert. How could we possibly say that depression is a sin? That is the antithesis of the divine feminine. No embodiment of the divine feminine could ever utter such a sentiment on this planet, in this day and age. Those are insane souls. Don't follow them. They're leading you off the cliff's edge. We want to bring this world back to safety. What this most missing and needed medicine feels like is something we can barely imagine, because it goes all the way back to tens of thousands of years BC, during a period that was known as the matriarchy, where somehow children were born, and therefore women were regarded as gods because they were the creative progenitors of our species, and they were worshipped as this. And in this time, there was therefore no nuclear family. Children were born and raised communally. Therefore, could we even imagine what that time period felt like, where literally every other human being was our own brother or sister? That's the tribal consciousness that our species is starved of. That's the tribal safety that our species is missing. And we're trying to fill that void. We're oftentimes using synthetics, or we're using delusions, or we're using escapism. And we don't want to do that, because we can create heaven on this earth. We don't have to wait till we die. We don't have to destroy this earth in the process. Destroy heaven while we're busy pretending that heaven is elsewhere. That's just insanity. It's not necessary. If we go inside, if we listen to our inner child, if we start respecting him or her, so to create environments that are actually safe, eliminating the parts, the people that are not safe, we're going to start entering a whole new reality. And that's what this year is about. By the end of this year, the rocket ship's already lifted off. And I mean that in a significant way. We're going to sense this. So if we can clear the debris and get ready for liftoff at the start of this year, I think we're really paying it forward. All right, so it's a profound month. It's going to kick off the rest of the year. It's going to foreshadow the years, plural, to come. As we're going to have the sun enter Aquarius on the 19th, we'll have our next new moon at the end of this month. So you'll be hearing from me for sure. And I want to make very available to you what I do. So we're going to have a Q&A coming up on the 25th. You can bring in your chart. You can ask about what's going on in your life right now. You can ask a question about pretty much anything. And I am very flexible. It's one of the best educational resources for learning evolutionary astrology, because we see it in real time. We get many dozens of real case studies as people are vulnerable, sharing. We create that safe space in the Q&A circle. It's a support group. We leave feeling supported. We leave feeling held. We leave feeling at home, and like we're with like mind and with our brothers and sisters, and not having to fight to be understood. That's what's brought in the Q&A in addition to the educational opportunity. So I highly, highly recommend it, particularly if you want more of a sample of what it is I actually provide. Because these videos are just letting y'all know I exist. We're not all living the same exact thing. We're going to experience this collective astrology in highly unique, highly individual ways. That said, some souls are more sensitive to the collective. Some souls more so reflect what's going on in the collective level. Those are those who would particularly benefit from the work of evolutionary astrology, pioneered by Jeffrey Wolf Green and his predecessor, Dane Rudyard. Collectively speaking, the North Node's transiting Pisces for the next 18 months, beginning Saturday, January 11th. So this is going to lead us all this forthcoming year and a half into this greater mystery, into this greater reality of what? Interconnection. There is a mysterious oneness between all of us, while mysteriously and simultaneously there's difference between all of us. And that's a lot of what we're exploring this year. Because this year, if any, is an in-between year. Just like how 2020 was like, and then there's a before and an after. 2025 is an in-between year. There's going to be a before and an after 2025, and things look completely different. Just like that childhood activity of writing to your future self, this is something that I particularly recommend this year. Because this seeking deeper purpose is going to connect the dots between the individuality that we were born to be that's different than every other human being on the planet. You were born to discover what that is and liberate that. And then it comes full circle into our offering, into our gifts, into our medicine that we offer back to the collective. So the North Node's leaving Aries this next few days. The North Node's right on the Aries point, the most important part of the zodiac, because it's the birthplace of a new cycle. And that's why we're in between in 2025. The next solar eclipse in April is still in Aries, while the moon's North Node has already entered Pisces. So where we find ourselves in 2025 is literally the liminal space between death and rebirth. Allow yourself this introversion. Allow yourself this hibernation, because as much as we can allow ourselves to receive the natural digestion, the natural emoting, we will reset and come out at the end of the day with some exciting, fresh, new reality. A whole new skin that we get to feel the wind and life and why we're here in an infinitely deeper, more meaningful, more inspiring way. Set your compass in that direction. because the end of 2025, Willy Wonka's Great Glass Elevator lifts off. And this is a rocket ship that does not simply move in one dimension or two dimension. This is going to be a rocket ship that introduces new dimensions. It's not just a rocket ship that goes up or down. It goes turnwise, it goes lengthwise, it goes diagonalwise, it goes dimensional, flipwise, and it's going to continue to infinitely expand until our mind blows into smithereens and we introduce to our species the new age of Aquarius. So no, things are not about to slow down. It's going to be an exciting year to come. And again, I hope to be joining you in some way, shape, or form throughout it. So again, thanks for connecting to my channel. Be sure to subscribe. You can also become a member. The Chiron material is still 50% off. Get yourself an astrology calendar. It's the best astrology calendar out there, extraordinarily detailed. You can track the moon every day, new full moons, eclipses, every single planet through the signs, planetary aspects, including minor aspects, and the 4 major asteroids, Ceres, Pallas Athena, Vesta, and Juno. This calendar has it all, and there's going to be just more and more. I have the funny feeling continuing to expand and grow from this channel as well as from other pioneering, exciting places, because ladies and gentlemen, we're landing a whole new reality. We're not having to go to another planet. This is going to be another planet coming straight to us. And on that note, I look forward to speaking to you next time, where we'll discuss the new moon in Aquarius at the end of this month. And as always, but especially under this full moon, January 13th, the high introverted period of this year, take extra care.